Welcome back to Communicology. Today I'd like to talk about something that is in our faces every day, and we can't really escape it because, well, it's growing at exponential rates, it seems, and that's the concept of AI slop. Now, I want to make sure I define this clearly and make sure we understand what I'm talking about, because it might sound from the beginning that I'm against AI or against technology in general and all that kind of fun stuff, but in reality, I'm against AI slop. Mostly. So let's break that down and talk about it a little bit, because first and foremost, I like technology. If it weren't for technology, well, I wouldn't be into audio video production. I wouldn't be into things that happen on the internet, being able to do content creation, all that good fun stuff. I enjoy technology. I enjoy social media, and I enjoy lots of other things that are in our communication technological space that we wrestle with, and I just like this stuff. But I'm also aware of what it is and what it can do and what it can't do and damage it can cause and what can happen when it's in the wrong hands. AI slop kind of fits in that darker side of the analysis of communicative tools. So let's talk a little bit about it. Now, when you think about the word slop, think about feeding the pigs. You got the pail full of all the leftovers from the daily meals, and you just throw it out there and the pigs just blah, 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 eat it all up. It's not exactly like perfectly nutritiously dense food for them that's best for them. It's just all the scraps, all the leftover, all the junk, all the muck that we would never eat, but the pigs would, because, well, it's food. Now, we could be giving a much better diet, but, this keeps us from wasting food, and the pigs don't seem to mind. So when it comes to AI slop, well, the comparison's fairly close there. So you think of the idea of slop, you think of work that's basically done with very little effort. You think of work that's done with very little quality. And you think of work that has very little, if any, meaning. So there's lots of AI out there, and some of it is really fascinating. Some of it's really interesting. Some of it's been used for social commentary or for entertainment. But at the end of the day, there's still slop. Now, this isn't new to AI. There's always been slop. When you think of just cheap, quick, mass-produced art, people have been railing against that for years. So whenever we come up with a new medium, like AI, why not be surprised that there'd be slop there too? So whenever we look at slop and how it's, infiltrated the internet, let's talk about, the effects of this and what it has done in the way that we consume it, and maybe ways that we can, kind of push back a little bit against it, because it is everywhere. It's hard to scroll Facebook without being overloaded with AI stuff. A basic scroll through my feed, it's full of it. Go on TikTok, same thing. Video after video of just AI-produced slop and AI-narrated slop. In fact, it's gotten to the point where a lot of the AI-narrated stuff is actually getting more likes and shares and other things like that, more engagement than actual content creator work. So, it's not like this is a situation of jealousy. It's just a situation of, why are we getting so comfortable with slop? Are we pigs? Do we want to be pigs? I doubt it. But, we keep consuming and keep going up to the trough and just eating what's put in front of us. Maybe we should be a little bit more discerning, a little bit more picky. So let's break down this first three definitions of it, and that it requires little effort. AI in general doesn't require a ton of work in the first place. When you think of traditional art, whether it's the written word or even the spoken word or acting or painting or chiseling and sculpting and all that other work, you can tell when someone's not good at it, and they take a lot of time to get used to it, and they finally, after practice and practice and practice and some correction and some guidance and some shepherding, they get better at it. And, it's a long process. I play the drums. I did not start off well. I was just banging, making noise. Then after doing it for years and years, you get better and better and better and better, and eventually you hit to the point where your ceiling is. And, that's where we are, though, with most art forms. Well, AI doesn't require much work to even get started. The way AI was a few years ago, it required a good bit more work, and AI was pretty easy to spot. The biggest thing, for some reason, it always had a hard time generating fingers. You go back and look at AI from 2 years ago, and it's amazing the difference, because for some reason it couldn't figure out how to do fingers. Like, it would add like 6 or 7 fingers per hand, or it would add a third arm to a person or something weird like that. And it would just be creepy as all get out. But that's a quick, easy way you could tell. Like, someone's arm's extra long, or they had extra fingers or an extra arm. And you say, oh, that's AI. Now it's gotten to the point where you look at some things and you're like, I'm not quite sure. I don't know that I can tell. Even some video work is getting to that point too. Well, those are the people who are spending the extra time getting to learn the process and trying to come up with even better prompts to get AI to make things more realistic. But AI is also catching up, so people who aren't very good at it can get fairly okay results, maybe even decent results. But the thing is at the end of the day, people who are poor at prompt writing or people who just don't care, just quickly throw in a prompt, get some stuff, and throw it out there. Again, no effort. Slop. So it doesn't take much to fill up the bucket with scraps, as opposed to making a 4-course meal from scratch. It takes a lot of work to do that, but to fill up a bucket with slop doesn't take much time. So that's step one. The second thing is quality. Again, I could spend time with good ingredients and be in the kitchen for quite a while and make a quality meal with good nutrition, good flavor, good presentation. Or I could, dump all the scraps into a bucket and, it's not the same thing. The presentation is obviously gone. No one wants to eat that just from the looks of it. But, the stuff that goes in the bucket is usually the leftovers or the things that have been trimmed off the actual food, all the gristle and the other things that we don't necessarily want to eat, and that gets junked into the bucket. So the quality is a step down, or 2 steps down, or 10 steps down, depending how far down we're going here. But the quality just isn't there. So when you look at a lot of AI, you'll see that. Like, you'll see, maybe the lighting is off, maybe the framing is off, maybe the color choice is off, maybe just the shadowing is off. There's something about it. A lot of times you can tell it's AI just because something feels off. And the more you understand how things are put together, that you need to have certain lines in certain places and certain shadows and certain places where glare happens or reflection happens, and you start noticing things are missing, things are off. I'll see like car traffic videos where they'll have this terrible car crash or a plane crash or something like that. And you'll notice like there'll be something, and then all of a sudden it'll just disappear. Like, wait, what happened to that blue car in the third lane? It just disappeared. Well, they just didn't bother taking the time to making sure that blue car stayed there. So as a result, that's a quality issue, and it's gone. The third thing to mention when it comes to that pillar of understanding AI slop is the idea of meaning. Now, this is a little bit more deep and a little bit more philosophical, but the idea of meaning, that something matters, that it carries some kind of message, that it's for a purpose, and I'm not saying for a purpose to get clicks, that is a meaning, but, when it comes to something having true human condition meaning, that's not one of them. So you think of the idea of, how do I get, this thing that's in my heart, this thing that's been gnawing in the back of my mind, how do I get that out there for people to appreciate, to consume, to wrestle with? Well, a lot of AI, especially AI slop, doesn't even consider meaning. It just puts things out there, must consume product. That's the basic kind of premise, that it's out there just for you to just consume things, just to click. Especially we see that in a lot of ones where people are clicking on it more than they're clicking on things by creators, because it's just so prolific. They're just pumping it out there to get higher click counts. That way they get monetized and they get the money that comes off it. You put in very little effort, and you put in, care a little about the quality, and you don't care about the meaning. You can get stuff pumped out there pretty fast, and ideally get a lot of clicks, and then in comes the revenue. And that's a big reason why it's out there. So, because it takes time to care for and love art. Art isn't rushed. Art is something that you nourish, you shepherd, and you guide along. So whether you're taking pictures or shooting video or writing prose or poetry, or you're doing some sketch work or painting or whatever you're doing, it's a matter of love, and you're expressing something. And it could be something that is truly beautiful. It could be something that's ugly. It could be something that's sorrowful. But either way, there's a meaning behind it. And it's not just for the clicks, and that's just something that we tend to see when we talk about slop. It's not there to really help us along. It's just for the clicks. So that's one of the things we think about. Now, what I want to make sure we talk about is also the idea that we're looking at a couple conversation pieces. Like, you've maybe heard of deep fakes or hallucinations. So what are those? Let's define those. And this comes from cnet.com. Deep fakes are precision forgeries that use AI to generate or alter realistic video and audio, making someone appear to say something they never did. The goal is deception, from fake political speeches to voice clones used in scams. Deep fakes target individuals, and their danger lies in how convincing they can be. Again, this fits under the category of slop because, well, it's got an ethical component that violates the purpose of meaning. Quality might be there, but when it comes to the meaning part, you're missing that third leg of the stool, and the two other legs might be there, but it's still going to tip over because you need that third leg. So you have a situation where you take some video footage and then alter it. Now, people do, with the cheapest, the sloppiest of deep fakes, you have the situation of you take somebody's video and then you put in different audio and maybe make the mouth move a little bit, but you can say that it's a little bit janky, it's a little bit odd. Or some of the little more hilarious political ones you'll see, like, they'll make, President Trump, doing all kinds of great dance moves and things. And you understand it's just done for the humor of it. And, so be it. Again, does it fall into the category of slop? Sure. Is it funny? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's still slop. And, people, probably won't fall for the ones where President Trump is, playing an electric guitar or flying a bald eagle. But there are ones that are done with enough time and enough effort to make it actually look like it's somebody famous, somebody who's saying certain things. Or in an even more nefarious situation, you see where people do that. They take a picture of somebody or a video of somebody and turn it pornographic and turn it into something, very salacious, and with the full intent of damaging that person, whether their integrity by turning it into pornography, or damage their image by releasing it and putting it out there to harm that person. So you see the idea of, what they used to call revenge porn, where people actually had that kind of pictures, and when they broke up with somebody, they released it to kind of get back at the person for dumping them. Well, now you have it where people don't even need that motivation. They can just take a picture, put it in AI, and make it a naked person, make them do compromising things, and then release it. Haha, it's funny, look at this. And they just destroy that other person's life. And being the internet, it's out there forever. It can't just be reeled back and put back in, like the genie going back in the bottle. It's out there forever, and it's being saved on people's hard drives and things like that. So you have those kind of things. And also, like the definition from CNET says, they're out there for scams and trying to, get people to maybe give up money, to give up their social security number, their bank account information, whatever. So you have that kind of thing, that nefarious aspect that comes into play. The other thing they talk about too is the idea of AI hallucinations, and these are technical errors that a chatbot might cite a study that doesn't exist, or invent an illegal case from thin air. The model isn't trying to mislead. Hallucinations happen when it predicts the next likely word and gets it wrong. Well, that's a thing that comes into play too, because it's careless and it's again wrong. So hallucination, you're familiar with the hallucination. You think you see something, you think you hear something, and actually you didn't. And again, there doesn't have to be any maliciousness attached to it, but at the end of the day, it's still wrong. And that'll happen sometimes when people are careless and they put in a little effort. They're not caring about the time put in or the quality of the material that comes out. They might not care about the quality of the time they're putting in, and that what it comes out, they don't care about that quality either. And as a result, it's devoid of meaning because it's wrong and it's fraudulent. And you'll have that kind of situation where people, I need to get this work done, just give me the thing, and it spits out stuff, and they just take it and run with it instead of saying, but is it good? And it's amazing how many times that we have always in our history tended to trust technology. It's amazing that we would still do this after decades of reasons not to. But we tend to because, quite frankly, we're lazy. We do it all the time because we're lazy. So you'll see maybe this AI-generated response that'll come up. You're trying to find out this factoid about you're trying to do a fact check on something, and it comes out with this and spits out this information. You're saying, see, here it is, it's true. And sometimes you'll see it put together, the deep fake and the hallucination stuff put together, and they'll create like a meme or an infographic that shows all these things. And instead of taking time to look at it and go, wait a minute, I'm going to research this, that people, just take it and run with it as truth. You'll see that like crazy on Facebook. Facebook and Instagram are full of these. You'll see this little infographic where it will show this latest study or this latest poll or this latest quote from people who never said anything, if they're even alive, and you'll have all these different things that are put out there, and people just share it instead of saying, I'm going to look at this before I share it. And one of the big clues that you can see is they'll talk about the study, but won't tell you what it is. Or they'll provide, this incredible headline, but won't share a link to it. Okay, that should be your first clue that something's not quite right. And sometimes it can be under if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't approach too. Like if you read something, you're like, wow, I can't believe that's just amazing. This is just wow. Maybe you should stop for a second because maybe it's hitting you like that because that's your brain saying, warning, it's probably not true. But that happens, especially if we want looking, if we're trapped, especially with confirmation bias. Like, I want this to be true. Oh, please let this be true. Instead of stopping and saying, whoa, I know I want it to be true, but is it? So before I share it and damage my credibility, maybe I should look at it first. But again, we tend to not do that quite as much. Again, lazy. We're lazy because it's going to take some time to do effort and effort to go do the research instead of just hitting the share button. That's instant, and that's that instant gratification, that boom, that little dopamine hit from sharing something that we can't wait to get out there into the world. Now, AI slop, of course, it defines as broader and more careless. And it says it happens when people use AI to mass produce content, articles, videos, music, art, without checking accuracy or coherence. It clogs feeds, boosts ad revenue, and fills search results with repetitive or nonsensical material. Its inaccuracy comes from neglect, not deceit or error. So it says here, in short, deepfakes deceive on purpose, hallucinations fabricate by accident, and AI slop floods the internet out of indifference, often fueled by a greed for a quick buck. And again, this goes back to the whole idea of effort, quality, meaning. So slop is failing on like all three of the pillars, whereas, hallucination and deepfakes are failing maybe on one or two of all three pillars. At the end of the day, it comes down to us as consumers and users of social media. People will always use a medium to try to mislead. People have been doing voice impersonations for as long as people have had voices, and as long as we have the ability to broadcast that, which we've had for 100 plus years now, people will take advantage of every opportunity to scam people. There's been writing for a very, very, very long time. Thousands of years we've had writing, and people have been trying to scam people. We've had art, and people have been trying to scam people for the longest time. And also, just quite frankly, people are looking for the quick buck. People are looking to be lazy and sloppy with their work. That's nothing new. That's human nature. At the end of the day, though, it's always going to fall back on us, the consumer. If you keep clicking on it, they'll keep making it. If you stop clicking on it, maybe they'll slow down a little bit. I doubt they'll stop because there's always going to be someone who keeps clicking on the stuff. Quit sharing it. Quit clicking on it. Quit talking about it and boosting its content by putting on your feed and covering it even further. Just stop it. That's the quick, easy way to get rid of it. We're not going to. Let's be honest. We're not going to because it's so easy. And they're going to keep cranking it out, just like any other kind of abused medium. But the thing is, at the end of the day, there are people out there who are doing good AI work, and they're caring about the effort, they're caring about the quality, and they're caring about the meaning. Celebrate them, boost them, and shame the other people or ignore the other people, but focus on the good stuff because, there is some neat stuff out there with AI, and it's kind of fun to see what they're going to come up with next. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the Terminator or the Matrix, but it's one of those things that we still get to see what they're playing with and why they're doing what they're doing with it. But it's going to be a fun next year or 2 or 3 to see how things change because AI is accelerating really fast. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you hanging in this long. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that greatly. And if you didn't like what you heard, that's okay. Thanks for hanging in there this long anyway. But we'll see you next time on Communicology.